So we're now on Daf Chaf Hey Amid Beis Lema Beplukta the Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira of Rabbana Kamifliki. That Rav and Shmuel are reiterating the machlokas between Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira and the Rabban. This time. Okay, this is a Mishnah later on in Daf Chav Zayin. Nishba levatel as a mitzvah v'lo bitel pot. A person took a shvua that he will not fulfill a certain mitzvah, and then he went ahead and he fulfilled that mitzvah, violating his shvua, nevertheless pot. L'kayim es ha-mitzvah lokim pot. These are the Rabbanan of Yehuda ben Beseira, and they go as far as to say that even if he takes a shvua that he will fulfill a mitzvah, and he does not fulfill a mitzvah, he hasn't violated the shvua. The shvua is not valid. But shahaya bedin shechayev. But if you go with the logic of Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, then you should be chayev. And there's a fundamental difference between taking a shvua that you won't fulfill a mitzvah and taking a shvua that you will fulfill a mitzvah. The Yom Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, Uma im reshus. If you could take a shvua on something that's irrelevant to Har Sinai, she'enem mushba miyom Har Sinai re'u chayev aleo, and that shvua is valid, then you could commit yourself to something that you had no reason to commit yourself to. Is mitzvah, if you commit yourself to fulfill a mitzvah, shemushpa v'yomed v'Har Sinai, where the Torah expects you to fulfill that, now you take a shvua to fulfill it, eino din she'echayav. And that's the shita Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, and the Chacham say, no, Amru lo lo, we disagree with you. Im amarta b'shvua, or b'shvua sarashus shekain asa bolav kehen. So if, for example, he's talking about a reshus, I will eat bread, I will not eat bread. So therefore, I could go in both directions, lav and hein. But Tomer b'shvuas mitzvah, when he takes a shvua that'll fulfill the mitzvah, that's only behain and it's not belav. Shekain lo asa bolav kehen. He can't take a shvua that he won't fulfill a mitzvah, as we said before. Nema, shall we say that Rav, the Yomi Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, Rav fits in with Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, and therefore Rav says that if he takes a shvua shezarak ploni, then he's chayav. Why? Because it's isa behain ubelav. Either you could say zarak ploni or shvua shelo zarak ploni. So what is it about Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira that is more appropriate for Rav and is not appropriate and cannot be reconciled with Shmuel? Shmuel Amar Rabbana. Why? Because Shmuel was the one who said that if it's lesser bilahaba, they can't go in both directions. The future, for example, Ploni Yizrak, etc., then it's not a valid shvua. Just 1 second. And what did the Rabbanan say over here? The Rabbanan said that even if you take a shvua to be Mekayim a mitzvah, the shvua is not valid. Mitzvah. Right, because if you take a shvua that you will fulfill a mitzvah, it's a shvua lahaba. And it was Shmuel who said that a shvua is only valid if it's isa bilahaba. And if it's not isa lahaba, it's not valid. And therefore, in the case where he says, I will fulfill a mitzvah or I won't fulfill a mitzvah, it's not isa lahaba. You can't say, I will fulfill the mitzvah. I'm sorry, I will be mavatal the mitzvah. Or I will fulfill the mitzvah in both directions. The Gemara doesn't like this either. Ali, but Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira kuliyamalo pligi. Shmuel's going to have to agree that he cannot be reconciled with Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, because in case of Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, he takes a shvua that he will fulfill a mitzvah, and that's lesser bilahaba. And why is the shvua invalid? So the Gemara has a Kal V'chomer again. Hashta la v'hein lo boy. Rabbi Yehuda says that you could have a shvur that you will fulfill a mitzvah, even though in the lav, in the flip side, in the negative, you could not have a valid shvur that you will not fulfill a mitzvah. Is lahabo l'sha'avar boy? Do you have any doubt that Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira would validate a shvur even if it cannot be converted in l'sha'avar and it can only be used in the future? And that has to do with the diyukim in the psukim. So therefore, there's no way, no how under the sun that you could reconcile Shmuel with Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, but keep Pligi leave the Rabbanan. The machlokas between Rav and Shmuel could be according to the Rabbanan. Right? The Rabbanan say you can't take a shvur that's valid that you will fulfill a mitzvah or that you won't fulfill a mitzvah. Shmuel ki Rabbanan. Shmuel holds like the Rabbanan. And that means that since it can't go both ways in the positive and the negative, therefore it can't go both ways in the future and the past. And that's why in the case of Zorak Ploni, that couldn't be Ploni Yizrak in the future. Shmuel invalidates the Shmuel, and that fits in very well with Rabbanan sheet. But Rav is going to work out, even according to whom? Even according to the Rabbanan. Why? The Rabbanan say that if you can't have it both in the negative and the positive, it's not a valid shvuah. So, for example, in the case where you will fulfill a mitzvah, you can't say that you won't fulfill a mitzvah, therefore it's invalid. But, right, t'chsiv lahara lahetiv behedja, that's explicit in the pasuk, lahara lahetiv. It's got to be lahara is belav and lahetiv is behein. Avola hava ulishavar, that it has to be both directions. Also in the past and also in the future. And therefore, the case of Ploni Yizrok in the future, it won't be valid. And therefore, Ploni Zark in the past, it won't be valid. So the Rabbanan, according to Rav's interpretation, do not require that it has to be Lahava L'Shavar, but only has to be Hain and La. Masiv Rav Hamnuna raises the following question: Lo achalti ayom, lo inachti tefillin ayom. A man says to his friend, "I didn't eat today. I didn't put on tefillin today." Mashbiacha. His friend turns back to him and he says, "I'm putting a shvuah on you, v'yamar amen." And he says, "Amen." Chai. So, in other words, according to the Mishnah on Daf Chavtes Amid Beis, there's a valid shvuah of lo achalti or lo inachti tefillin. So Gemara asks the following kasha: how could this be so? Bishlem lo achalti, fine. Isa below ochel. He could have said it in the future, namely that what he won't eat. Eloi nachti. Okay, he took a shvur. They didn't put tefillin on. Fine, but me Isa below aniach. Can he formulate that shvur in the future? He can't do that. He would be violating a mitzvah. Rashi points out you have to put on tefillin at least once a day. Who mosiv lavu mafarikla? Rav Hamnuna asked the question and he answers. Let's stun him, Ketani. Lo achalti lekarban, v'lo inachti lemalkus. As far as lo achalti hayom, that's a perfectly valid shvuah, not only for malkus if he violates it, but also for carbon chatos if he violates it b'shogeg. But in the case of lo inachti, true, it's a valid shvuah. As far as Malchus is concerned, but it's not a valid shvuah to bring a carbon chatos to be violated because what? Because it's not Isa below Aniyah. Masiv Rava asked the following question: Ezo hi shvuah shav. I thought Steve said he could stay till 10:30. Okay, maybe I misunderstood. Okay. So the Mishnah says, Madaf Chavtes, Ezi Shvua Shav Nishbal Shanas Hayadu Li Adam. For 3 days, people know that this is made out of stone and not out of gold. And the Omar, he takes a Shvuah Amud Shal Evan Shushal Zav. He says that this pillar is made of gold. Omar Ula Vahusha Nikar Gimel Bnei Adam. This becomes a Shvuas Shav because everybody knows about it for 3 days. 3 people know about it. And if 3 people know about it, it's public knowledge. It's made of stone and not made of gold. Maybe they painted it gold, so it looks like gold. Time, but the nikar lo nikar over mishum shvuas bitui. Why is it called the shvuas shav? Is because it's nikar. Everybody knows about. 3 days went by. 3 people went by, and they said already that it's made of stone and not made of gold. But if it wasn't nikar and there was no public knowledge that it's made of stone, then the shvuah would be valid. And if the shvuah is valid, then he's chai mishum shvuas bitui, not shvuas shav. Frekt Rava of Amai, why, according to Shmuel, are we saying that he's chayav for the shvuah? Ha'eno be a heishel zav. He can't have it in the future. The only time that Shmuel says a shvuah is valid as a shvuah's bitui is when he could have taken it in the future. But in the case where he says ploni yizrok, he can't take that shvuah here also. What would be a formulation in the future? There is no possibility of formulating the future. What is the column is going to become gold? I mean, it's made of stone. Who most of them are farik, says Rav, I haven't answered this question. I concluded from Ula's explanation of the Mishnah that the oath taker is liable for a false oath as 3 people did not know about the column was made of stone. That inference, that diuk, is not correct. Nikar over mishum shua shav, lo nikar mishum shua sheker. So how does this defend Shmuel? Just think for a second. So again, if people don't know that it's false, so it's not a shvua shav, but it's a shvua sheker, and he violates velo sishbu shmi lashaka. So you got to give him a hasra for a sheker. So just 1 second. So how does this square with Shmuel? Shmuel, we said that it's Eino Biahe. You can't use it in the future. And take it in the future. Nochmal, let me just go over this one more time. What was Rava's kasha? Rava's kasha was, let's say it wasn't Nikar, that he be chayav mishum shuas bitu. You're going to Shmuel, Eino Biahe zav. So again, in the case where he said it's zav, and it wasn't Nikar, that he violates Shuas Sheker. Why would that be valid? After all, according to Shmuel, it has to be formulated, that it can be formulated in the future tense. He can't say it will become gold. No, so I don't know. I have to go back to that again. Sorry. Omer Abai. Umoder Rav. The Omer Lechavero Shvua Shani Yodeh Lecha Edus. Okay, now we get to what's called Shvua Edus. And a man says, I know testimony for on your behalf. And then he finds out that he really doesn't have testimony to give. And Rav is going to agree that he's potter. And why is he potter in this case? After all, he could have said, I don't have edus for you, so it goes both in the lav and the hen. We said, according to Rav, it has to be Isa bilav ubehen. And here it's lesser bilav. You couldn't have it bilav she'eni yodei lecha edus. Why not? Although an oath that one knows testimony for another qualifies as an affirmative version of an oath of utterance, but an oath that one does not know testimony does not qualify as an oath of utterance. Rather, such an oath falls in the category of an oath of testimony, Shavuos edus, which when false begets liability only in denial is stated in court. So Abai is teaching us 2 points. Number one, if he says, I swear that I do not know testimony, so that's not a Shavuos bitu. And he would not be liable for a Shavuos bitu. And then Abai tells us that since the negative version of the oath doesn't qualify as a Shavuos bitui, then the positive version is also not regarded as a Shavuos bitui because it cannot be formulated behein ubala. Yadati, he swears that he knew testimony, velo yadati, or he swears that he didn't know testimony. Machlokas. This depends upon Rav and Shmuel. Hey, Adati, I testified already for you. Below Adati, I did not testify for you. Machlokas also depends upon Rav Shmuel. So the Gemara says the following. If you cannot formulate the shvu in the future, is en lo even if you formulate in the past, it's not a valid shvu. Is lahachi, therefore, afka rachmana l'shvuas edus. Right? The Torah took out of the category of shvuas bitu, shvuas edus, michlal shvuas bitu. Why? Because it's not isa l'shava. If the oath of testimony were regarded as an ordinary oath of utterance, according to Shmuel, one would never be liable for falsely swearing, since it is not valid when formulated in the future tense. I will not know testimony for you. Because that's l'shvuel levatel mitzvah. El l'rav l'mai hilchasa afki rachmana. So why did the Torah have to add shvuas edus? After all, Rav doesn't have this requirement that it should have to be in the future as well, where I will not give testimony for you in the future, which is an ishbal avatos mitzvah. Amrura bonakami dabai l'chiyuve alei tarte. The Torah wants to give a parsha of Shavuos edus, it'll be chayiv twice. Enochinami, he's chayiv b'toras Shavuos bitui, but he's also chayiv b'toras Shavuos edus. Amalei. So Abai says the Rabbanon tarte lo matzisu lamrisu. There's no such thing as bringing two karbanos for the same violation of the same single oath, the sanya. It says in the parsha of Chiyuv Karbanos, it says liachas me'ela, liachas atachayvo v'yatachayvo shtayim. So there can't be an overlap in which you chayv for both Shavuos Bitu and Shavuos Ha'edus. So the Gemara asks, Ula baye lamai hilchasa afki rachmana. So then we go back to square one and we ask, according to Abaye, why did the Torah have to generate the special category of Shavuos Ha'edus if in any event it's Chayiv Mitor Shavuos Bitu? And you can't say L'Chayiv Alav Shtayim because we have a Joshua Liachas Atachayv V'Yata B'Chayiv Alav Shtayim L'Chesanya. But we need it for the Bryce. B'Kulam Nemar V'Helem. So in the case of a Karbanol of Yored, Yochayv for Shkoga. In V'Nelam, it was a Halama. The kan lo nemar v'nelam. But with regard to Shavuos Ha'edus, it doesn't say v'nelam. And why is that so? L'chayv al amazid kishogeg. So the chiyuv of Shavuos Ha'edus, as far as Korban Olav Yored is concerned, applies not only b'shogeg, but even b'mezid. So the Torah has to give us a separate category of Shavuos Ha'edus because it's the only time where you have a Shavuos Olav Yored, a Korban Olav Yored, for a violation of B'mezid. So that's Abaye. Omru le Rabbanan Abaye. So Rabbanan turned back to Abaye, and what do they say to him? Ema b'mezid b'chayv chadum b'shogeg chayv tarte. Maybe the Torah is saying that if he did it b'mezid, then he has to bring one korban for that false shvuah, for Shavuos Ha'edus. But if he was b'shogeg, maybe he should be chayiv two karbanos, one for Shavuos Ha'edus and one for Shavuos Bitu. Amalahu, Abaye responds, Lav hainu di amri. I already gave you an answer to that question. You can't say that he'd be chayiv shtayim for both categories of Shavuos with an overlap because liachas achas to mechayv v'yata mechayv l'shtayim ve'ibim mezid. And if you're going to tell me that it's referring to the case of a mezid is mika tarte, right? There wouldn't be two. So why is the pasuk necessary to teach that one cannot be obligated to bring more than one korban olav yored? Rava Amar Mishum Davi Dorish B'Chalal. That the reason why this person who took the Shavuos Ha'edus is chayav only one korban is because the Davar Min Achlal v'Yotzel Lidon B'Davar Chadosh Ein L'Chabola V'Chidusha B'Lvad. Michlal Dabai Sovar Iso L'Shvua Ba'olam. He takes the Shvua and he denies that he has testimony. And he's got to bring a korban for denying testimony, and he took a false oath. He takes a shvua that he knows the edus for his friend. It turns out he doesn't know any edus. You cannot have, we have to, right, even Rav agrees it has to be Isa B'Lav, and here it's not Isa B'Lav. Right? If he takes a shvua that I don't know testimony for you, so that's not a valid shvua. And the reason why it's not a valid shvua, I think we said before, but let's just go over it, is because although an oath that one knows testimony for another qualifies as hain, as an affirmative, an oath that one does not know testimony does not qualify as a shvuas bitui. In the case of Lav, or the Abai Me'ahi. So Abai apparently retracted his earlier statement. In fact, he holds that one must bring a korban if he took a shvuas sheker, and he said, "I know testimony for you." And Iboy Semo, with this we'll wrap it up. Tadaminayu Rav Papa Om. Right, so one of those statements that was attributed to Abai was actually said by Rav Papa. So we're up to Rabbi Shmuel Omer, and Mirz Hashem. That's for tomorrow. Okay, then now